The Center for Procurement Excellence is a nonprofit member organization with a mission of educating, promoting, and advocating for better RFP processes. Join CPE today and make your RFPs faster and more transparent. Membership also includes discounts to all of our training and networking events. CPE hosts a variety of virtual and in-person networking and training events throughout the year. Visit our website to get signed up. CPE Speakers Bureau is available for your regional and national meetings and professional conferences. Contact us to learn more.
Welcome to Ask the RFP Doctor, CPE's monthly web series where we discuss the latest best practices in procurement and supply chain management.
Okay, well, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to walk through quickly, just kind of can't do a lot. We can jump into some demos if we want later. I can show you some things, but just kind of hit the highlights. Really just one thing that I want you to walk away from is that AI is not a computer program. And how we've been working with computers and how we see computers as a tool the last 20, 30 years of your career is in my opinion, an improper perspective of how to utilize AI inside of your job function and what its potential impact will be to the workforce, to procurement specifically, as we kind of unfold. So I'm going to just walk through kind of what AI is a little bit from a thinking perspective. And then if we want, we can jump into some examples of some generative tools and other things we want to talk about. Happy to take any questions. I got the chat room open here. So if you have questions, happy to address those. From CPE's perspective, we feel that AI, as it, even if it only gets about half of its potential over the next 5 to 8 years, it will fundamentally change the RFP process. It'll fundamentally change how suppliers and clients work together in a variety of fields and industry sectors. And so there's potentially two paths that we see happening in terms of the impact of AI in terms of how we interact and solicit when it comes to requests for proposals. The evolution of this is a lot of folks are already using AI in some capacity to help refine, develop, create, review solicitations. Probably most of you are already doing that. That's just the start. There's tools that are emerging. So for example, there were over 6,000 new AI startups in the last few months, like the last 10 months. And there's more coming every week. And there's the high levels of competition, high levels of innovation or supposed innovation happening. But there's several tools that are already on the market that say they can create RFPs. Just click of a button, scopes of work. And then at the same time, there's a couple that are actually really good that take the RFP and then automatically create a proposal based upon the RFP for vendors. And so you're having solicitations written by AI or will start to be almost completely written by AI. And then you're having responses to those AI created solicitations those responses are developed and managed by AI. So all of a sudden it becomes zero value, like whoever has the best system, let's say. So it's going to start to shift what's actually important and what we need to focus on when we're trying to decide who to hire. And then as it evolves, the likely path of where we will end up in 10 years from now, it'll either be AI will turn pretty much every function, service, project into a commodity where the differentiating is going to be cost of the human element, or, and this is a CPE's hope, at least my personal hope, is that it could drive to where the quality of the strategic collaboration and authentic partnerships with our vendors becomes 1,000% more important than it is today. And so we are kind of driving in one of those two directions. And so that's where we are, but we're not there yet. And we'll kind of see what happens with regulation, with what policies are put in place. I was just out and doing an AI training on Tuesday, and with a whole bunch of different procurement organizations, and some have no restrictions around AI usage. Others have high restrictions around AI uses, very similar client types, not like one's the military and one's, a private entity. No, they're very similar, and it just depends on what their legal counsel or their IT folks, how scared they are of AI. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And I do have some examples of what that'll be. So just to get into some of the basics, I want to spend some time on this because this is the most important slide I have. Is really understanding what. Just kidding. This has no value whatsoever. The nice thing about AI is you don't need to know how it works or why it works. And even the people that created it, they've kind of jumped the shark, and they're not even exactly sure what it's doing anymore. So you don't have to worry about it. If you're looking for where to start, I would start with ChatGPT. If you don't have an account yet on ChatGPT, I recommend you go there right now while I'm talking. It'll take you like 2 seconds. If you have a Google account already, just use your Google account. It's free. There's a paid version for about $20 a month that gives you a lot more options in terms of some of their new tools they just released. But the free version is what was the paid version 6 months ago. So it's still very good what you get. You just get a little bit more prompts you can do per hour and things like that. So sign up for it. Google account, Microsoft, Apple account. You can use those to be a cross account, or create one that's just for ChatGPT. But if you don't have anything yet, I would start with that one. There's a lot of tools, but that's the ones I'd start with. Let me do the first poll here. Made some surveys the other day. And this isn't my, okay, it's not going to show. That's okay. Don't worry about the polls. We'll just skip it. Let's do intro to AI. Okay, so there's tons of news articles out there. A lot of it's clickbait. It's on collision course, obviously, with jobs. It'll impact the young workers first, most likely. A lot of just interesting thoughts about its impact, but we'll see what happens. Most new technologies are overhyped at the start historically. AI is different. There is nothing like AI in terms of its potential impact to fundamental society and how we do business. The best example I've read about that's the most similar transformative technology was electricity. Electricity, however, took decades to build generation, to distribution, to how to pull it into homes, how to interact that with technology, like just to design a toaster that could utilize that technology. Whereas with AI, the infrastructure that's needed to optimize its use is largely in place, or is coming in place very quickly, where a lot of the big four tech companies, your Amazon, your Meta, your Microsoft, your Google, they are building hundreds of data centers over the next handful of years that are only devoted to AI. AI requires quite a bit more processing power, energy. There a couple of places they've already approved their first little micro nuclear plants. Google's doing one right now. They're just signed a deal to have their own power plant for some of these AI data center bases, so they're not relying upon the existing grid, which has been their Achilles heel moving forward. But the race to AI is real. Whichever country gets there first and gets to the AGI and the super intelligence will win, and no one will ever catch up. And so it's an amazing potential impact to how we do lots of things. You can just read articles every day. I'm teaching my first grad level AI class this semester. We're doing different things, but one is every week I have the students identify something in the news. We do a different topic, and there's just hundreds of things happening every day that are making the news. And that's the one you don't even know about, the ones that aren't making the news. Biggest updates for you probably in terms of your immediate future. So ChatGPT 01 just came out about 2 weeks ago. It's the first reasoning the first reasoning bot where it can start to think like a human. Because all AI does right now is it mimics a human's response. Chat 5 is coming out. So we're on 4.0, which is called Turbo before, but we're on Chat 5, supposed to come out later this year, early next year, maybe middle of next year. It's supposed to be 100 times more powerful for the average commercial user like us than Chat 4 is. And so lots of technology that's changing very quickly. If anyone remembers when ChatGPT actually came out, it was at the very end of 2001. So it's been out for 2022, 22, and 23, or just end of 22. Anyway, it's only been out for about a couple of years, and it's already evolved so quickly if you were using it at the start. Okay, so let's talk about what AI is and what it isn't. So it's not a computer program. So this, if you don't recognize, the top left symbol is from a computer program called Stockfish. It's the most advanced chess playing program, so the game of chess in the world. Okay, and written by humans, coded by humans, mathematical probabilities. It just does what a human would do faster, or it can look at more data than a human could look at in a reasonable amount of time. But there's nothing per se it can do that a human can't do. It can just do it faster or more of it, but it will always be limited by the way the human architects of the computer language designed it to function. And so when they say, can a human beat a computer, they're talking about, can a human beat Stockfish? And that's what that computer program is. Now, this is a history lesson. So this is about 2017, 2018. What happened is they call the 80s and the 90s the AI winter. A lot of the AI learning algorithms were written 40 years ago, just didn't have the technology to handle it. And then in 2015, they were able to uncouple some of the ways that we had approached learning algorithms for a computer, where a computer can absorb information and then adjust how it responds to the data inputs, right? That's a large language model, deep learning, machine learning, et cetera. And for example, before, if you inputted text, it would look at specific sequences of words, left to right, and spacing of those words from each other. And that's how it looked at it. In 2015, the technology was developed where it could look at all the words at once. It wasn't looking left and right. It wasn't looking right to left. It wasn't looking at spacing. It was only looking for patterns. And so that ability to look in patterns began to mimic more closely what a human brain does. And before, they were trying to train it to think like a human. And now they're trying to get it to mimic how a human would look at a problem. Another example is it was really hard for a computer to look at a picture of a cat and identify that it's a cat. And so previously, these computer engineers, computer scientists, data scientists, they're trying to train or inform the computer, and I'm oversimplifying this, that where they would say a cat has whiskers, a cat has these types of ears, a cat has these types of eyes. If you see these things in a picture, it is a cat. Well, a cat can be rolled up in a ball, it can stand in this position, it could be in a different position. Your human brain can look at a picture of a cat and immediately know it's a cat. But a computer, it's looking for certain things and it couldn't understand it. Once they got away from trying to tell it exactly how to think, they just started being able to feed it pictures of cats. And it said, all these things are cats. And now a computer is really good at identifying a picture of a cat because it trained itself looking at what all these different cat pictures are, and it made up its own version, it's called a neural network, of how to look and understand those pictures. So on this right corner here, this is the graphic for AlphaZero, which is part of Google's DeepMind project. This is an AI bot, not written to be a chess program. And what it did is they gave it the rule book of chess. And they said, here's how chess is played. And they fed it that PDF file. And they said, to develop a strategy that optimizes your chance of winning and minimizes your chance of losing. They let it play itself for 100 games, and then they let AlphaZero play Stockfish, the most advanced computer program designed by humans. They let it play in chess. They played each other for 100 games. AlphaZero never lost. So an AI not built for chess, that was only allowed to play itself for a handful of hours, was never designed to play chess, wasn't trained by humans to play chess, just given a PDF file of the rules of chess and told, try to win and try not to lose. Never lost a game, won 28 of the games, and tied 72 of the games. A couple years later, Stockfish was upset. They updated their software. DeepMind, they don't even care about this. Is like just this was a game for them. They weren't even, this is not their main mission. Like, for example, they're using AlphaZero DeepMind on energy consumption for data centers, and it's saving 40% more energy than a human energy management, building management expert was able to save. Just more efficient ways of looking at the same type of problem. Same thing, Stockfish played them again, 1,000 games. AlphaZero won all of them except like 3, and then obviously they drew quite a few. So still, and they didn't update at all. Stockfish, all the humans tried to redo everything. Now Stockfish, they've added AI to their computer program, so it's much more advanced. This is Kasparov. He was there. He said chess has been shaken to its root to AlphaZero because it was doing things no human's ever done, like sacrificing the queen 2 moves in. So things a human wouldn't consider, the computer was seeing patterns and opportunities that the human brain has never even thought of before. And so it created a new way to attack the game of chess, and it was extremely effective, and no human would have thought of that. Next example, this is Halicin. This is the first AI-created antibiotic. This is the most effective antibiotic for treating certain types of bacteria. Up until about 3 years ago, we had no treatments for. This was created at MIT, late 2020 into 21. And what they did is they took the AI, they fed in, there's different stories of this, but 2,000 to 2,500 different molecules, bacteria, antibiotics, some of the FDA rules, and they let it just churn through the data and learn from it. In that process, it created new categories of bacteria and antibiotics that no human had ever thought of, and found different factors of consideration that no human had considered. Once it had trained itself and kind of understood the relationship between human physiology, rules of the FDA, bacteria, and existing antibiotics, they gave it the full 60,000 plus database of elements, molecules, bacteria, antibiotics, the full FDA database, all of the poisons that are known, et cetera, et cetera. They gave it all the information, and they said, develop a new antibiotic that's never been done before that can treat these types of bacteria we don't have cures for, and make it non-poisonous to humans. And that was the only 3 rules they gave it. And you can do this yourself now. You can do this in ChatGPT, create your own AI bots for basically for free. They let it churn, it spits out this, and this is one of the most effective treatments we have at certain types of bacteria that before we couldn't solve. It's the first AI-generated medical antibiotic solution. And when there's an interview, you go online, you can find this interview with the lead scientist that was running this, and they asked him, like, could you have ever done this if it's just humans without AI? And he said, well, basically how they do it now, it's just trial and error. They're just trying different combinations, different sequences. And that's, you know, here at ASU, we've got 4 huge buildings, and there's just people in there taking drops and dropping into Petri dishes and trying different things for different viruses and bacteria and cancer and all these different things. And he said it would have been prohibitively expensive to ever do what AI did. We never would have found it using our traditional techniques. And so we're about to emerge into a world, and this could happen, and it will probably happen in all of our lifetimes. It could be in the next 5 years, where a lot of the primary, like the top 5 diseases, we could have effective cures or much more effective treatments than we have now in the next 5 years. Like, imagine cancer is solved by AI in 3 years from now. How will that impact society? So these are all things that are happening. Next example, this is Vista. This is the Air Force's first AI integrated self-piloted fighter jet. It's an F-16. They just loaded an AI bot into it. They just notified the public they were doing this in May. They've been running test flights since the end of last year. They let it train for, I think they let it train for like 4 or 5 flights. And then they started putting against their human pilots. And they've done a couple dozen flight tests now against humans versus the AI. AI still has never lost as of the time this article is released. This was earlier this summer. So this is the current Secretary of the Air Force, Frank Kendall. He took a ride in the completely AI-controlled fighter jet, saw some of its combat tactics. He gets out of the cockpit and says he'd seen enough. He'd trust the still learning AI with the ability to decide whether or not to launch weapons in war. So it's learns so fast, and you put inputs, you tell it what outputs you're looking for, and it makes up everything in between. Whereas a computer program, you have to tell it step by step what you want it to do, and it's constrained by your ingenuity as a human to give you the outputs you want based upon the input. In AI, the quality of the input can be varied, and based upon how it's trying to mimic what it thinks a human would do, it gives you the output it anticipates would be the most valuable output to the user based upon the input. Okay, this is ChatGPT. This is my last example, and we're about done here. Okay, so we hear this term GPT. I just want to break this down. I'm going to oversimplify this, but GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and it's better to think about it as a TPG, kind of work backwards. So you take input data. Now, in the case of ChatGPT, that's the whole internet and anything else you feed it. So if you feed it data or an RFP database of your own, it takes the whole internet and that information, okay? And it takes that data and it transforms it into patterns that it can recognize. And then based upon all that data, it pre-trains itself for the different situations and circumstances that the data aligns to. Now, it could take like a paragraph that's written on a website and turn that into information that will look for a pattern of how a human brain would think about something. Based upon all that information from the internet, it transforms it, and then it trains itself based upon all of that language and context and information that's been inputted. Then as a user, you submit a prompt, that's what they call prompts, or a question or a request to the pre-trained information, right? So it took the data, the raw data from the internet, transformed it, looked for patterns within it, and trained itself on what potential ways the data is related or the information is related. And then based upon the prompt that you give it, it generates a response to your prompt based upon the patterns that it's recognized in the data it has in its information archive. And that's all it's doing. So the response, the generated response, will be unique based upon your question. And you can ask the same question twice, the same prompt or the same request, and it will give you a different answer each time. Not totally different, but slightly different. And the answer will evolve as it gets smarter and answers that type of question for more people. And so I've been using it since it first came out within a few weeks, and I was using AI stuff before that. The level of quality of the output you're getting today versus even 8 months ago is drastically different. And if you're using it yourself, you'll probably notice that. So that's what a GPT is. So this is the end of last year, it's the end of 23, this happened. So this is a mom, her name's Courtney, that's stock photo on the left. The real picture here, this is Alex, that's her son. He was 4 at the time, and maybe you saw this in the news. This is the best story. He started having trouble, like he couldn't walk. Like if he started with his right foot, he'd have to drag his left foot. If his first step was his left foot, he'd have to drag his right foot. He had some other developmental issues. Her mother, like mama spidey sense, noticed he couldn't sit cross-legged. And so she kept telling the doctors he can't sit cross-legged. Well, she went to 17 different doctors. None of them could identify what was wrong with him. She was getting very frustrated. She goes into ChatGPT, this is, again, end of last year, the very end of 23, enters all the doctor information she has, all the files, types of loads the PDFs, and then ask it what most likely is the right diagnosis or disease. And the first thing it spits out is tethered spine syndrome, which is the doctors had the first doctor dismissed it, and the second doctor dismissed it, and all the subsequent doctors didn't even consider it. She went back to a new doctor, gave all the information and reasoning that the Chat GPT had given her, why it was that, asked them to rerun the test, and it was exactly what he had. And because of the way they had positioned him in the MRI and some of the other things, they just had messed up and they couldn't see it. It was very, very subtle. And so Chat was able to see patterns in the information that no human doctor was able to see. And I mean, Chat can't read the MRI. It's just going just off the notes and the patterns. Retested it. It was exactly what it had, fixed with a simple surgery. And that's him as of a couple months ago, totally fine. Right. And so these are the types of things that with an AI, it can surpass. And this is just AI. This isn't even like what's next. Chat just released their first reasoning component. And so the next evolution after AI is called AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. Where before, if you like, here's a simple example that you'll see people say, if you ask AI, like if you asked ChatGPT 5 weeks ago, hey, and it might answer now because it's learned to mimic it, but originally if you'd said, hey, I have 3 wet towels I'm going to hang on a clothesline and they will take an hour to dry. How long will it take 9 wet towels to dry? And AI would say, well, if 3 take 1 hour, 9 will take 3 hours. It would think linearly because most of the math it had linear. With a reasoning bot, you keep like, well, it doesn't matter how many towels you have. Once they're all outside, they're all going to dry in an hour. And that's what a reasoning person can do. And so the first reasoning tool comes out. Once it hits, there's different opinions on this, but basically once the reasoning bot hits somewhere between 8 and 15 years old, it will surpass humans in every function. Because a 15-year-old has all the reasoning skills. They don't have the knowledge, the information, or the judgment, but their basic reasoning capability is in essence fully formed. It's basically formed at 14. And so once we get there, it's going to be able to outperform humans in any similar type task that would require reasoning. It can't do that yet. And we're very close. Like the 01 ChatGPT, originally that wasn't supposed to come out for like 2 to 5 more years, and it's already out. So we're ahead of schedule for some of those things. And then you go to general intelligence, then after to super intelligence, where it's significantly more capable than a human. And that'll be a different world. But that's where we're at right now. So other things people say can't see, you can turn off the data sharing. So like, oh, once I put on Chat or AI, it has all my data. You can just disable that. OpenAI owns Chat. OpenAI is basically owned by Microsoft. They're their primary investor. And if you're using SharePoint, you're already trusting your data with Microsoft. So you can turn off the share feature so it won't keep your data for training. It won't release your data, and it never releases any of your information. But there's this idea that it like steals everything, which isn't true. If you are worried, you can buy the enterprise version. And I'm not pushing ChatGPT, but there's options around that to navigate. You can have the slides. I broke all these things down different ways. We talk about it. There's a lot of different definitions, a lot of different things people do. There's all different graphics explaining what it does and doesn't do. You can make images in AI. I made these in seconds. And that's the free version. And inside Chat, there's all these other GPT add-ins that you can do more refined things like higher end data analysis, create videos, create PowerPoints, create documents, and you can write your own GPT. And so, and we can do demos if I can try to do certain things right away. Right now, 2 paths right now in AI. There's the generative path, which is like your GPTs where it generates answers, Gemini, Copilot. There's a lot of plugins for other things that kind of do that. And they're like assistance bots. Those are good to okay. You know, they're not always valuable. They're getting more and more impressive, but those exist now and they have immediate impact to your productivity. The other thing that's happening with AI is there's the AI-enabled solutions. And so some of your existing products are just adding AI into their existing product. Others are building new products around AI. And right now, There's 6,000 being made about every 12 months. There's probably more now. That number's like 4 months old. But there's all this data, all these new startups. One of the biggest challenges is these AI companies, they don't name their company or their product anything like it does. And they all have these weird spellings. So they're kind of hard to find on the internet. But it's the Wild West. It's totally crazy. But that's where we're at right now. And so the dust hasn't settled. There's lots of competition. So like when the internet came out in like the 90s and became like a thing, there's this interesting, it just came out, it was super interesting. This was from Wharton, I can't remember what school came out of, but anyway, they looked at all these companies in the 90s when the internet came out, and there were two philosophies. Some companies added the internet to what they do, and others rebuilt their business model around the internet. And the ones that added the internet and didn't make it their core business or part of their core business, I think it was like 85% were out of business within like 15 years. And the ones that rebuilt or were fresh companies that built around the internet, they're all the biggest companies you know today. And so like AI, their premise was AI could be a similar experience. The first study that came out that was large in terms of its impact on like procurement type task and transactional task, significantly more productivity. I did one with my students. We just published this a few months ago. It was a 10 to 30% performance impact and speed for a student learner. So anyway, lots of different positives. This is from Deloitte. This is their breakdown of where generative AI can impact procurement today. I thought this was interesting, so I give them credit and let you see it. It's an interesting breakdown. And we'll skip that. And then, so things for leaders. Generative AI, your chat, in my opinion, is the most effective. Claude's very good. There's a few others, but pound for pound, I typically use chat. Generative, it's here now. You should be using it if you're allowed to, policy-wise, immediately. You could probably get another 10 to 30% productivity out of your procurement teams today if they had good training. The next thing I would do now is the AI tools aren't there yet in terms of the procurement specific ones. Every experience I've had, the marketing exceeds the capability of the tool. There's some that are valuable, but you may want to think about just getting your data organized. And what I mean by data is if you think of AI as a new employee and how you would train a new employee to create a scope of work, let's say, right? What I would do, and we're helping people do this, but this is my recommendation, and it needs to be someone's focus, is let's say you're developing some, if you start today in 18 months, you could probably have everything you need. But let me just give you, I'm going to make this simple. Here's just a simple example. So let's say you want to train a new employee how to do a scope of work. What would you do? Well, if you're going to train AI, what you would do is you'd say, okay, what was the client's original request, your internal partner, your internal client, customer? What'd they ask? And then from there, record every meeting and the transcript, every evolution of the scope, all the inputs and comments, every version went from we have a need to the actual final statement of work or scope of work you put in a solicitation. That is how you would train an AI. If you had 30 of those and you could show it all the conversations and all the meetings, all the evolution of the document, all the input and reference points, and how that evolved, that's data to AI. A lot of managers think they have all the data because they have all these solicitations, but you just train it on what you have. It's not how you got there. And so the quality of the AI tools you're going to get will be dependent upon the data set you're able to train it with. So if you start preparing your data now, your solicitations, how you manage things, all the information you have, and get it really clean, when the right tool comes along, you will be able to maximize the value proposition of that tool because you will be able to train it with good data, good information that's usable by an AI to increase its effectiveness. And because once you invest in an AI tool, you are married because it's going to get smarter. It's going to keep learning. It's going to get better. So if you ever go off of it, you're going to have to go way backwards. It's not going to be like a software tool where you're like, you get the next version and it's better than the old one. That's not looking like what AI is going to do because it evolves on its own. So once you're in, you're kind of in, and to get out is a huge step back. And so you're kind of stuck forever. Not forever, but it's going to be a harder switch than, going from one ERP to the next. AI-enabled apps require an investment. You got to make a business decision. Just in general, I would just be patient. It's changing so fast. It's total Wild West. They're killing each other. You don't even know where you're going. You don't know what's going to land. The technology is changing so fast. There's a lot of impacts. I won't go through all these. There's a lot of things happening that AI is creating challenges that we've never had before in terms of how the workforce functions. I'll just give you one really simple example is the AI can do simple stuff right now. And if you look at average person's day, oversimplifying, 80-20, 80% is like admin, low value adding functions. 20% is high intellectual value added expertise required functions. If AI starts to strip away that 80%, well, that 80% gives you accomplishment, satisfaction, motivation to handle the 20%. Well, as AI switches, strips away the drumbeat of progress or accomplishment or reinforcement or positive sense of progression in a person's motivation to work, and all you have left to work on is the hardest, most mentally rigorous, challenging, uncertain work. Your brain can't do that for 8 hours a day. And so you may be net more productive, but the human themselves is way less happy, and they feel less productive, and their motivation decreases, and they have less job satisfaction. And so I don't have a lot of data for that, just my early observations of watching this roll out. So that's just one example of like the new leadership skills that are going to have to emerge over the next 10 years. Also, this is brand new. This just came out. All technologies previously, corporations would have like a young person learn it, and then that's how they'd roll it out with like their junior employees, and they kind of like matriculate through. AI is the first technology ever measured, and this is just one study, so we'll see if it's true or not later, where being a senior or an older, more experienced employee, you're better at using the tool and you learn to use it faster. First time ever. So AI has significantly more value to a more experienced worker than to a new hire or a younger worker. Anyway, I just think that's incredible. Anyway, that's it. I went long. Let's go to questions.
Okay, I have a list of questions for you, Ken.
Hit it.
There's a whole bunch of them, so I'm going to just kind of go down the list here.
Yeah, rifle.
So if AI is not a computer program, what is it actually?
It's an attempt to mimic the human brain, and so it's mimicking a human response. It's not giving you a predetermined response based upon a specific set of inputs. A computer program input, you will always get the same output. AI will try to interpret the inputs, look at what it thinks you're looking for, and mimic what it thinks a human would do if given that request. A computer program does not do that. So it's more like a junior employee at this point, or a younger person, than it is a computer program.
Okay, so you've answered this, but maybe you could reiterate it in one sentence or less. Can you tell us what firms seem to have a good AI RFP development software? We just received a presentation from Hazel.
I do have a list, but I'm not going to promote any software tools specifically. Besides chat's not really it's just a general one. But like in terms of procurement things, a lot of them are very new. I would just make sure you talk to the actual tech people and not the marketing people, and get a usage, not a demo.
Okay. Do you recommend a statement in the RFP identifying that we use AI to develop the RFP? What should be included in the statement if it's recommended?
I would not. I think it's assumed at this point.
Okay. One of the questions was, has anyone tried any legal AI apps to advise on construction procurement matters, negotiating T&Cs, drafting responses, etc.? I will answer that one. I was at a construction conference and spent some time with this app, if you will. It's called Document Crunch. It's an attorney. It's a construction attorney started developing this back in 2019. Again, we don't promote any particular software, but because it was so specialized and I dug into it and I have a strong background in construction, it was pretty amazing what they've done. I'm still skeptical of what they say can do, but there is a lot of those things coming out. As Ken put it earlier in his presentation, you have to be really careful between the sales and the actual use, and knowing all these are super young. So if you buy in early, especially if
Yeah.
something's really expensive, that could be a risk.
Yeah. Like if you go in on Prodigy and then AOL comes out, a year later, you wish you had waited. Right. So
yeah,
that's an old internet reference, but yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Ken. Somebody says that our agency found that ChatGPT does not correlate with the state's general terms and conditions without changes, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So if you aren't, there's a specific way to request things and you can have it only use the data you are inputting. So that would be true if you don't confine the response pattern to exactly what you're looking for. That could be a user issue and not a technology issue.
There's a related question is, what about asking a proposer if they used AI to develop their response? Is there a recommended statement, etc.?
You can. I don't know what would impact in terms of your evaluation. If they're not using AI, it would make me concerned because that means they're not using the best tools and technology available. So, it will make it hard. Basically, what's going to happen, and then this will happen very soon, proposals are going to have no value because they're all going to be amazing. So you're going to have to look for other criteria, and this is one of the functions of CPE, and how to optimize the non-AI impacted evaluation modes, because written responses are going to become at a level of sophistication. I mean, I can go to chat right now, write a response, and you can adjust how sophisticated you want it to be real time and edit in the document real time. I mean, we are months or maybe a year away from you will never write a Word document the same ever again. Like the chat 4.0 Canvas beta, if you have the paid version, go into the Canvas beta, you can begin to edit real time with AI in a text document. It's unbelievable. And it's new, like it's 2 weeks old, and just give it 6 months. So I think written responses are going to go to zero value. High quality is going to increase tremendously, but the value to differentiate and compare one to another, all you're going to be able to say is, well, this person used AI and this person didn't. It doesn't tell you anything about their capability. So it's going to be harder and harder to do that.
Yeah, for those of you that attend a lot of our events, remember that, it's about the people that the company sends to work with you that make the difference in how well the service goes.
The people are going to become, they're always been important, but they're going to be, it's going to level set a lot of the non-value functions, and it's going to clearly say what has value and doesn't have value. So.
So Barry asked, how long do you believe it will take to have AI evaluate demos?
I don't know. That's it'll be a function. Demos are just going to go away because the software is going to change. So you're going to, a lot of these things like ERPs, a lot of these like human function assisted process managers and data trackers, that's just going to go away. I mean, that's, you're not going to demo because, so, I mean, you're going to be able probably within 3 years, again, I have no idea, but like just where things are projected and some things I've read, every single person is going to have a world-class computer programmer personally, and it'll cost you nothing or like, pennies a month. So like right now you hire a computer programmer, hard to find a good one. They're difficult to work with and they don't give you what you want and they finish late. Now imagine every person who has a phone has a personal computer programmer, can say, hey, I'm trying to track these documents and develop this way. Can you write me a program that can do this for me? Like, just think of all the admin tests that are just eliminated. It's going to decentralize a lot of the applications and how things are done. That's going to be the challenge. It's not going to be some of the things, it's like the demos, that's going to be for a tool that will be antiquated in 5 years. You won't be thinking, the demo will be around how many of the jobs can it replace that I'm currently doing, right? And that's going to be, that'll be a different demo than trying to figure out how well the tool can help your existing human processes. So.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
We had a question, and this is probably good for you. It says, like educational institutions have done, is it possible to have policies be written to prevent submission of AI-generated proposals? Why don't you tell us your opinion about, especially as a professor, about AI-generated proposals or even work that you're getting from your students?
So the faculty are split. It's probably 60-40, 60 are against it, 40 are for it. I give bonus points if you use AI. I think it's the tool. It's what the students are going to use. I think to try to delay its embrace is probably not a good way to go about business. You can, right now, it's totally acceptable nowadays. But I would be, if there is concern, do whatever politically or emotionally or culturally is acceptable for your organization. But in parallel, I would be preparing for a highly AI impacted procurement world. And the buyers are going to need to, the vendors are going to move faster than the buyers and how they use AI to respond to existing procurement constructs. And so to stay ahead of that, just to say, don't use AI, the ability to enforce that is minimal. And you have to be specific to what level of AI they can and can't use. Because in a way, like Grammarly is AI, spell check is a little bit of AI. So like what level of, to define that will be extremely difficult. And as the tools gain prevalence and advancement, it becomes a risk of protest. I think it increases the risk to the client to begin to try to restrict that. You've got to adapt and look at different evaluation methodologies that can navigate around AI in the current construct and go into a new model. So that's something else that we're doing. But like the new model of how to procure is got to be able to handle an AI world where the vendors are going to be able to write at a level and respond to a level. I mean, I have seen business development AI technology that would scare every client I know to death. How much they can know about the client, the project, the contract, the service 5 years before it even touches the street. 3 years, 2 years, 6 months, tracking everything ever touched in any video, any transcript, any city council meeting, anything public, anything on the internet, anything on Twitter, anything anywhere, reference to a person or a project or the aspect that may be impacted, takes it all real time, summarizes it. Their business intelligence prior to release of projects is going to be astronomical. Because right now it's like these companies hire all these people to walk around and get to know you. And it's just based upon a personal relationship or being in the right meeting at the right time to know some little factoid. Now everyone's going to know everything that everyone else knows. And that function goes to, that value of that function goes to zero. And the tool will be better than any human ever. So that's all good for a client, but you've got to adjust your procurement process to adapt for that world. So
in CPE, our core tenets of what we're teaching in our RFP course and what we're helping you meets all these requirements. So even like we talked about demos earlier, Ken and his team at Simplar have done big dives on actually do demos, especially like in IT, differentiate between your vendors. And he's shown that typically there's not a great differentiation. So you feel like you know who's better, but in actuality, the scoring and stuff says differently. So those are the kind of things that we're working on. I'm scrolling down, Ken. Somebody said more interviews and presentations in the right way. Yes, likely. When you say usage versus demos, please explain what you mean by that.
So go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So like, for example, some of the classes I teach have specific applications in budgeting cost analysis. And so I've been on the hunt for cost analysis, budgeting, takeoff type tools. And, 11 months ago, there were 8 major players. Now there's 4. They're dropping. And there's a demo version where it works beautifully. If a usage version is, you would give them some of your data, information, real time, and let them use their tool in front of you on your information, not their pre-canned, and see what it can do with some of your own data, your own tool. Like if you're trying to buy an RFP writer, let's load up a real one and see what it can actually do for you. The demo is going to work great. You've got to see what its true capabilities are, where it breaks, because they will break, where it can expand, and if it really adds that much value beyond a template, right? Because a lot of these writers now, it's marginally more impactful than a template. It saves you some writing, but if it's only taking a template and adding some writing, you can do that in chat for free. So then I would take what the app's doing versus what I could do in chat, and is that delta worth the investment versus the $0 or $20 a month for chat? So as an example, I'm oversimplifying that, but that's what I would do. I would say, what can it actually do? And then how much of that can I replicate in existing tools that are very non-expensive, and give myself more time to let the technology shake itself out. So I don't invest you don't want to be a first mover when it comes to investing money. And so kind of let the dust settle. Like that would be my personal strategy. So when I say demo versus usage, it's got to be real, yours, and then whatever it did, try to replicate that in existing generative tools. And how close can you get? And is that difference worth the cost? That's the analysis I would perform.
And so I think part of what Ken's saying, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that like chat itself will do a lot of what these people are trying to sell you right now. And that they may be in their version A versus version B, but they're talking about version F that they've not even created yet.
I mean, I've done all these boot camps now. I did one this week in Denver, all these procurement groups. And I'm going through just showing them for 15 minutes just what ChatGPT can already do. And I created an RFP in seconds. I created an RFP bot, and like takes me 45 seconds. I loaded up 11 ERP RFPs I had in the CP database for higher ed institutions that worked in the last 6 years, and had a bot. I said, create for me an outline for a scope of work. Boom. Now start filling in each section step by step. Boom, boom. And people are they're like, what? Oh my gosh. And I'm like, here, I took a data set from an agency we're working with of all their purchase requests for the last 5 years, dumped the raw data in. I said, categorize these. Boom, done. And a gentleman sitting there to my left, he's like, wait, are those categories in there? I'm like, nope, it's messy data. And I opened up the Excel file, let him see it because it's several thousand lines. He's like, that would have taken days to do that. And you just did it in like 3 seconds. I'm like, yes. I'm like, and let me create some charts for you, real time. I'm like, what analysis would you recommend based upon these data inputs? And it gives me like 20 recommendations. I say, do the first one, chart real time. And he's like, well, this is better than the dashboards I have. I'm like, yeah, a lot of the Power BI, the dashboards you're using, you're going to be able to customize it faster with what you actually want personalized so much faster. And so that was the experience these people are having, is if you haven't played with it yet, you've got to you just need a little bit of hands-on training to get you over the fear threshold. And once you see it, I was in one last week in Texas. This was with an FM group, and there was the oldest gentleman in the room. He's hunched over this and we're doing a half-day workshop. And we're doing one of the data analysis workshops. And he's like this on his computer. He tilts, and I'm watching. I've done the intro and I'm watching. Tilts his head back, stretches up in his chair like this, and says, I can now fire my worst employee. And people are having these revelatory experiences, and they forget they're sitting with 40 other people because their minds are being blown, right? How much it can already do. And it's truly amazing. And so obviously I'm very excited about it. I just think get on it quick, massive productivity gains. You're probably already understaffed. This is the first solution to take some of that pressure off. One example, one of the things I came up with was like, let's write an email and then eventually a memo and a plan of like, you're the boss. You just got informed one of your procurement managers is going to be on medical leave for the next 3 to 5 months. Write the email. to tell the staff about it. Write one for vendors. Let's create a plan. So the first one, just to notify everyone they're going to be on medical leave. So we're doing this workshop and it spits something out, just a beautiful letter in a second, right? And with minimal, inputs. And a woman in the crowd, she's like, I just had to do this 2 weeks ago. I thought about it for a couple of hours. I slept on it. I didn't know the right things because I probably spent more than 3 hours from finding out to sending the email. And this produced something much better than I did and did it in less than 3 seconds. Now, that's the type of productivity you can gain immediately. That's a very simple example. And so you can start to see all the ways, if you stack this and all different things a procurement professional does, I think there's 10 to 15% with minimal effort, maybe 20, 30% if you have a little bit more strategic outlook on it. Stripping away some of those non-value added functions or admin or time intensive, low value activities. AI can begin to help with that today.
Okay, so we're at the end of our time, but we're willing to stay on and continue to answer questions. So we will do that. But we wanted to let everybody know that, hey, time's up. I know you guys are all busy. CPE is talking with all the RFP doctors, and we're looking at potentially putting a hands-on course virtually, which is more challenging than in person, potentially in early December. If you're interested, it would be a 2 or 3 hour type of course on AI for the basics. So if you're interested in that, keep us posted, send us an email, let us know you're interested. We're trying to figure out how to do that logistically and what that looks like. So for those of you that have to go, thank you.
I can stay on and do a demo, Jeff. I can walk them through.
Okay, yeah. Let's get through a couple more questions and then Ken will start a demo. Ken, this is a good one. So it sounds like the buyers will have to better determine a correct response regarding what is generated by AI or human. So the suggestion is buyers will have to better determine a correct response to an RFP. Can you want to talk about buyers determining correct responses?
That will be extremely risky. Yep, very risky. That assumes a level of capability that does not presently exist in buyers that will somehow exist once we have our AI. That'll be extremely difficult. That's one of the biggest dangers of AI is, it can already outright any human I know. I know there's people that are amazing writers. I don't know any of them. And so it's already the best writer I've ever met is AI. And so it can take anything I write and make it sound 1,000 times better. My ability to critique it at this point is limited to my specific knowledge about a subject matter that if it's in the area that I asked the AI about, I may have more personal experience than the AI does. But the AI's experience is only limited to the whole internet, which is more than my experience. Mine's more anecdotal when it comes down to it. So that will be it'll be hard to defend that analysis case to case. And that's potentially problematic. So yeah, I'd be very careful if we're going to start having buyers determine what's a worthy response and what's because just because AI wrote it doesn't mean it's not the right answer.
So we've had several questions about what if a vendor uses AI and it lies about their company and they have liability? Yes.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah,
that's why it's so important that our RFPs are right. This
doesn't that assumes everything they say now is true.
Exactly.
That's careful with the assumption.
It doesn't change the fact that any of our tenets of CPE about how you have to ask, because we're placing the burden. A good RFP places the burden upon the vendors to differentiate themselves from their competition. In a perfect RFP, in a perfect world, we should be able to look at those proposals and one stands out to the top and we score it that way. Now we have certain processes we have to follow and the like, but that still doesn't change. AI doesn't change any of that, and how you do it. So a bunch of people have written. I'm not going to ask any questions. If anybody has any questions they want to ask Ken right now, turn your mic on. and do that? If not, Ken, do you want to share, just kind of show some demo stuff for the folks that are left?
Yeah, let me,
So go ahead. Anybody have a question while Ken's trying to set that up?
no, Barbara, you can turn it off. I can show you to do it. Here, let me share my screen. So it's never out there for everyone to see. So that's not what it is. Can everyone see my screen? If I can hide this.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me just do this. So I'm on the paid version. So you get this one for free. The rest of these, I'm not sure. These are free here too. But this one's free. You'll be limited on how many questions or requests you have per hour. This is brand new. This is like not even 2 weeks old. This is brand new. I'll walk you through these, but this is the basic version. So let me just show you the basic version. It can do a lot, especially compared to what it was 6 months ago. So let me do the, here, I'll just do this one here. I was playing with this the other day. So I am a procurement manager, and I just found out that one of my team member, and you don't have to spell things even right. It doesn't have to be spelled correctly. I'll just leave it messed up. My team members will be out of office on medical leave for the next 3 to 5 months. I'm very polite to AI, by the way. I'm fully aware it'll probably be my boss within the next 5 to 10 years. And I'm super nice, polite. I tell it did a great job. I want to be on the trusted humans list. I recommend that same practice. So can you please draft me an email statement that will inform the rest of my team and vendors that, and I'm going to put, I wouldn't put the person's real name in because HR might be upset. And so I just put a fake name in, and then you can go change it in Word later, that Dave Smith will be out. And your quality of response depends on your speed of your internet. And so if you've got good internet speed, you'll be more impressed by AI. If you have lower speed, it'll be less impressive. And so this is what I hope this finds you well. Inform that Dave Smith, one of our key team members, out the next 3 to 5 months on medical leave. During this time, we ensure all responses are covered in our operational continuity. Please pay matters. Dave, one question, please. So great little email. I did it the other day. Here's what I wrote the other day. So I wrote this one. I'm procurement manager, small team, blah, blah, blah. This one's even, I had a better internet connection than I have right now. So it says I wasn't on Zoom. I had like 5 things open. Dear team, hope this message finds you well. Dave Smith, out for 2 to 5 months. We wish him a full and like just beautiful, right? Creates it right away. So that's like basic. You can start a new chat. I can be like, hey, let me, here, I'll throw in some contracts here. I was doing I got it in my desktop here. So let's do a contract example, custodial. I can take these 5 custodial contracts. I can take this and just drop these in. And it's going to load these up, and I'll say, I have attached a few contracts for custodial work. Can you please do an summary analysis of major differences between them? Only use the attached PDFs for the analysis. Okay, so if you don't constrain it, it will go everywhere. So its default is to use the whole internet. So I'm telling it, just use these 5 PDFs when you develop the analysis. So let's see what it does. So it's starting to break down the different contracts, the different things, blah, blah, blah. So it's point out things that are different from contract to contract and giving me a quick summary. So I can stop this. It's just going to keep going. I can be like, okay, can you give me a table summarizing the differences of any union requirements in the contracts? So what's going to do, I don't know if these will have union or not. Let's see, this might be a bad question, but it's going to go through and try to understand what union requirements are, and then it'll make me a table if there are unions. It'll tell me if it doesn't understand what I'm asking. Oh, there it goes. So makes me a table, and I can expand this, and then, right, so right here is the table. Now I can say, this is great. Can you give this to me in an Excel file I can download? Download. Thank you. And this is real, I'm doing real simple, but like you can just, so there's the file. So I can download this file, open it up. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
Can you see the Excel file?
We can't see the Excel file,
Okay, one second.
but I can see the download prompt.
Yeah, so here's the Excel file. And so now instead of like do all that stuff, I have an Excel file. I can put it into a Word document. I mean, or I could download it to a Word document, or I can say, hey, wow, great. Can you make me a downloadable PowerPoint slide? Now, this is the free version. This isn't even like the sophisticated version, right? And so now it's going to make me, so this is so like inside a chat, so it's going to do this. There's other more robust PowerPoint GPTs you can use. So now I can get it, and this, it sometimes struggles with this. Let's see what it does here. There, boom. So not perfect, right? But now I could be like, watch this. Let me go back. Oops. I meant to ask for it in 16:9 widescreen. And so that's just like going to recreate that slide into a 16:9. Don't have to mess with it. Again, if the internet was faster, it'd be done already. So that's basic version there.
Ken,
yeah.
there's a question. If chat is capturing all the information you asked for, or have you done any checking to determine if chat captures all your information? What's the accuracy rate for reading documents?
It's very accurate. It's gotten way better. The question I would ask is, what's its accuracy rate compared to a human? So if you're looking for 100% proficiency, then you'd have to assume a human is doing 100% proficiency. So I'm not saying I wouldn't have a human check it, but what I think where we're headed is the role of the human function is going to shift, and we're going to slowly learn to trust AI more and more and more. Like, I don't trust it yet, but I have not found major errors that weren't easily identifiable, but my quality of my input was wrong. And it's, you know, if you'd asked me that question 18 months ago or 12 months ago, I would have answered it in a different way. But the quality of the outputs has exponentially increased over the last 12 months. And so my personal trust level of the data outputs, and I don't expect you to be where I am because I use it a lot, is much higher than yours will be if you're just entering into it, which is what it should be. You need to develop your own trust relationship, and where you think it's appropriate, inappropriate, The challenge is that AI is evolving so quickly that your opinion of it is typically outdated. At least mine has been. Like I'm running this class with my students, and I'm learning things every class period. And because I've got a whole group now doing things, and it just takes one person to come up with something. And so we're all learning together, and everyone's constantly being amazed at some of the tools that we're finding that are out there. I wish you could all be in my class with me. Like it's so much fun. And are you worried about losing your data to the internet? You can just turn that off. So now you turn it off, and now none of your data is shared. Right. And so that's the two options you have to do that. So, and you can buy the enterprise version if you want. So that's the basic version. Let me do a data one real quick, just so you can see a data file. So this,
somebody earlier in one of the earlier questions asked about not being able to, Kane, you keep going, I'll just do some color commentary. Talked about, not believing what you see anymore. And what's going to happen. And that's a much bigger societal discussion that we're not going to have with CPE here, but
I personally don't believe anything I hear or see like 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So I mean,
but as an example is that there's a couple of video makers, AIs, where I've taken technical research papers, I've had AI summarize them, I've put them into the video system, and the video writes the script, builds the video, picks the voice and the voiceover, and in less than 10 or 15 minutes, you have a downloaded, 5 to 30-minute video on the subject you gave it to. And it's probably, I would make tweaks personally, but it's probably 80% good. So we think that there's a lot of things on TikTok I've been watching, and I'm not young enough to do TikTok a lot, but that clearly are being made by AI. Oh, Jonathan asked, Ken, why do you think government jobs like county, city, schools are delaying the implementation of AI technology?
Oh,
It
because
will have to be implemented at some point.
Yeah, well, they're waiting. I mean, it's an investment. So one is to wait for the technology. Two is to wait for the regulatory environment to catch up. That's what's going to keep jobs, is they're just going to make rules you can't, like the longshoreman strike. Like, it's not over. They just settled to wait till January 15th. They kind of agreed on a new wage rate. They did not agree on the use of AI and automation at the ports. And the members haven't voted on it yet. The union wants no AI, no automation allowed at the ports in the movement of this cargo. Well, that's how you stop AI, is you just make up laws or rules or agreements that say you can't use it. But there's no way that if this is a 5-year agreement or a 10, there's no way AI isn't going to outpace some human controller or some human resource manager on how to best optimize the positioning, layout, distribution, sequencing of this cargo. There's just no way a human's going to outperform this thing. So that's how it'll be the barrier. So why are they delaying the implementation? There's a huge societal impact. Sam Altman, who's the OpenAI, their product is ChatGPT. He's the ChatGPT guy. He's like the Bill Gates of AI. His big other product is called WorldCoin. He's big on universal basic income. There's another huge study with these both. He spent like $12 or $15 million on one this past 18 months. Another big one by a national research organization, not government, but heavily funded. Another huge universal basic income. And they both got published just end of the summer. So they're like a month and a half old, 2 months old now. And both were worst case scenario for UBI as a potential mechanism to adjust society towards an AI world, because AI is going to take a lot of jobs away. Like I think it'll create more jobs, but that transition from now to AI to future, there's going to be a net loss for a while. And so one of the ideas was to basically nationalize the tech industry, make it a payout like Alaska has statehooded the oil. So every citizen of Alaska gets a check based upon oil revenues by the state. Well, you would nationalize some of the tech and we'd all get a UBI check based upon the value and the productivity that AI, because AI is going to be significantly more productive. It's also a great way to solve the debt crisis. Anyway, both of the UBI outcome studies were worst case scenario for UBI. It's not going to work. It makes things worse. So I mean, that's a whole nother hour conversation, but that's another. So if you get into AI, there's a lot of societal impacts, but yeah, we got to slow the pace. There's a lot of technology we're not certain about. We don't know how much it could be used for bad. But that's usually above the heads of most of the procurement folks, you know, myself included, and it's way above my pay grade.
Hey, Ken,
Yeah.
Jonathan asked, what industry do you think the new jobs will be created, or what type of jobs?
The jobs you will see will be things we haven't conceived of yet. So like in my world, education right now, and basically for the history of everything, we hire people based upon area of expertise. So like I have one kid in high school. He has a chemistry teacher who was hired for his chemical knowledge. He has a English teacher who was hired for his skill and training and master's degree in English and composition. Same thing with his symphony teacher. Same thing with his calculus teacher, right? Now in an AI world, AI will be better at teaching those subjects to the level that's needed in the future than a human can. And so you will not need to hire an English teacher. You will have I think you're going to have a new type. I've read a lot on this. I think you're going to have a new type of teacher where, and I'm just connecting dots, synthesizing things here. This is just Kenisms, where they won't be like a subject matter expert like they are now. They're going to be a coach. And I'm going to walk in as a kindergartner, or one of my kids is going to walk in as a kindergartner with an AI teacher that will sound like a human. You can make it sound like their mom, their grandma, their best friend, any voice you want. It'll be with them their entire time, K through 12, and maybe into college even. Know every question they've asked, every concern they've had. It's going to ask the child about questions about their day. It's going to have all this information about the best way to help that child. Every question, where they're at on their test, what they need to be learned, what they need to be revised, a better way to teach them. And it's going to have that for 50,000 kindergartners at a time. And how smart it's going to get is going to be exponential year after year after year. And so our children are going to learn in a much more robust educational environment. And the human is going to be the coach, the helper, the motivator, the encourager, because our young people now, this Gen Z, huge mental health issues. And I have a whole data set if you want to look at it. I just put a slide together this week on it because it's becoming such a big issue for companies. This is going to alleviate some of that, in my opinion. So you'll have better training. They're going to learn the right things. Like, for example, one of my high schoolers taking a class this summer between freshman and sophomore year on getting ahead in like pre-calc. And so he's seeing integrals and derivatives for the first time. And he's like showing me one, like an extra credit problem. And it's like a double integral. And he's like, Dad, how do I do this? And like, I'm pretty good at math. I've taken a lot of math. It's one of my differentiating skills. But I was like, oh man, I have to like refresh myself. I haven't done that in a long time. Take out my phone, take a picture of the screen, load the image into chat, solves it in a second, and walks through all the images, all the steps of the solution. So what's the value of learning calculus? There's no value. I mean, the value's got to be in a different aspect of how your brain understands problems and how it can use calculus to create value, to minimize problems, to generate additional capabilities, technology, opportunities for society. And that's what's going to change. And so like here, I didn't even open up the Excel file, right? I just said, what's in the Excel file? It can tell me. I need to talk to my boss. What should I, here's the question. What recommendations? Time-based analysis. So now I'm going to say, I'll just take the first one. Great. Take time-based processing time. So let's just do that. Oh, and it gives me questions here. I'm like, this is wonderful. please do the first one. Let's see what it does. I know we're losing people, but that's like, this is just data analysis. There's so much you can do. So yeah, in terms of societal things and how it's going to impact education, impact functions, how governments are going to adapt to it. I mean, hopefully we don't have politicians. It would be awesome. I mean, the data is going to be the limiting factor, how good the data is and how much we manipulate the data before we allow the information to learn. But this will become, it'll be interesting to see how nations evolve based upon their use of AI. We're all going to die before we see the full result of it. But our grandkids will see it. They will live in a different world. It'll be getting closer to Star Trek, you know, in 100 years from now. And it's kind of funny. Star Trek's what, 21, 22? You know, we're in 20. So it's not like it's like 1,000 years ahead of us.
I just want Rosie the robot from the Jetsons.
Oh man. Yeah, well, robotics is not quite as far as long as the AI is. Yeah, robotics was supposed to be further along. I mean, I was told when I was in college, half the workers on your construction sites will be robots by the time you're 40, and that ain't true. So. Okay.
Shane said, one of our regulars, Shane said we need a session or two on this at next year's CPE conference.
So can you visualize these? So that's one of the questions it gave us. Let's see if it creates the graphs for me here. So anyway, it can do all these things. You know, I've got too much money right now. It's a little quicker. Let me show you just two more things. So here it's got all the charts and makes charts where you can change all this. Be like, the words on the x-axis are overlapping. Can you make that better and use summary terms? Let me expand this first, make sure it's not just me. Yeah, see it. Let's see here. So let's go back. Let's see if it can fix this for me. So you can just work with it. I've actually found this is faster than Excel, like 80% of the time. And I'm highly proficient at Excel, I would say. See, perfect, right? So it fixed it for me. So like to do that in Excel, I can't do that as fast as AI just did that. And then I can download this as an image, or I can say, please give this to me in an Excel file with the data used as well. And then it'll give me an Excel file. So like, that's just, I'm just trying to give you examples of things it can do. It can do PowerPoints, you can load up PDFs, Word documents, analyze things, compare things, summarize things, write letters. Let me go, and there's that, you know, here it is in Excel. So this is the new Canvas one. This one is blowing my mind. I think this is the one I did in it. No. Here it is. So I did this before. I said, okay, I'm a procurement director for a medium-sized utility in the Midwest. Please write me a summary brief for my leadership on strategies we should be considering for AI adoption, procurement tools, generative and task specific within our organization. Please make it 2 to 4 into paragraphs and then a page or so of specific recommendations or considerations. Do what you think is best. And this is a beta, so this is brand new, right? So here's the draft here, and I asked it to make it, you know, so it gives me the thing. I can go in here now, and I can adjust the length, you know, how long I want it to be. And it will just rewrite it for me, right? So longer now. And I can go in and adjust the reading level, and I can make it more sophisticated, right? And so they will update that. And so it'll just go through. And then now inside of it, I can go in and be, okay, let's just find a statement here. Conducting. It's essential term which of these tools can provide the most impact. We should conduct an assessment, identify. Okay, very good. So like we should conduct an assessment. If I heard later to ask, I made it right. So now, so I can say this. I mean, like, so please add an additional paragraph explaining in more detail how we would conduct this assessment. Okay. And now it's going to add this in there for me. This might be too old. Oh, there it is. It's added it. So adds a paragraph here, right? So to conduct this assessment, right? So now I can be here. I'm going to go here and say, make this a new paragraph spaced from. So like you start to see how this can impact how we write. So this is the new Canvas feature. Then I can download this, right? Put it right into Word. Got that. And this is beta, is brand new. You can ask it things to do in here. Can you add I don't know if we can do this yet, a flow chart image of the explaining, summarizing.
And you don't actually have to spell correctly. It's amazing.
No.
I spell so poorly. It just works well.
Yes, please design it for me. I don't know what it's going to do. I've not tried to do this yet in this beta. I've only played this. This is, again, not even 2 weeks old, I think. Let's see if it's got a summary flow chart here. So it's got a flow chart. It's not an image. So right now I can take this. So let me copy this. Let me go into a new chat and say, can you make an image flow chart from this information below? Thank you. No, not text, but like a picture or image. I don't know if it can just not. I've never tried this before, but that's how it can just begin to. That's the Canvas one. It can just edit things real time in the document, change it, add things, make it more sophisticated, less sophisticated. Oh, there it goes. Right. So that's not the best. This is a slide GPT I use, but there's all these additional enhancements to Chat GPT that can let you do more things. Like Canva is one that helps make graphics, logos. So I could probably put this into Canva and get a higher quality image output. Most of them are free. Some cost a little bit, but there's so like here's the famous, image generator, right? So an image of procurement professionals on a webinar being bored around a topic.
At CPE.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about CPE. So again, but I've created images for slides. You can create, and everything's custom, everything's unique. I was showing my kids how to do. They had one had a presentation on the dangers of vaping. Add more people, not just one. So let's see what it does. But anyway, and it creates this beautiful graphic that you can use in the slides, and images, pictures. And like before, you have to hire someone to make a nice image like that. And to have that skill to use graphic and design to do that, now anyone can do it. So it's spelled procurement wrong. No, yeah, it's spelled procurement wrong. Let's see there. Procurement. Anyway, I can keep. Anyway, that's that one. Let me go new chat. And then now here's your advanced. So this is the reasoning bot, and I think I use a reasoning bot for this one. No, one of these I did reasoning bot. Yeah, here's the reasoning bot. So like the reasoning bot will give you much more detailed, articulate responses. So in this one, I said, outline how to adopt AI tools in a large procurement organization for a manufacturing company. Boom, right? So it gives me every step that I should consider, and it's phenomenal. Like this is exactly how you'd want to do it. And then, I was like, amazing, great work, you're the best. Please expand on point 14.1 with a detailed action plan. So point I was doing the other day, 14 was how to engage suppliers with AI initiatives to enhance collaboration. And then it gives me a step-by-step action plan. And it may not be 100% what you want, but it just cut out a lot of the thinking, and it lets you start working from something instead of working from scratch. And so that's such a huge productivity enhancement. And this is just one of those. So now I can go way more detailed. I could create a 50-page document on how to implement AI into a procurement organization that will rival what you would hire a major consulting firm to do and pay them a few $100,000s to do it. You can get there maybe the same, better, or slightly worse for 20 minutes of work and $20. Huge. I mean, that's just another example. And I'm making all this up, but like another example of how to do that. And this is just 2 prompts. And look at all this detail I'm getting. And if you read through it, it's wonderful. I just did it for a research proposal I was writing. And I was like, that's it. It walked through like the 15 top things I should consider. I probably would have thought of maybe all of them, but it would have taken me a few hours and a couple people to talk to. This thing did it. And now I'm editing, revising, critiquing versus creating from scratch. So we need to stop, Jeff. We're going too long, but that's, I was just trying to play with it, but that's just, if you haven't seen it before, people always ask me, how do you get started? I would go watch some YouTube videos and just start playing with it. And if you're actually serious, everyone we like, and this is a humble brag, but like we have a pretty good training we do for people. And like I was in a session this week and a group came up, a large procurement organization. They're like, hey, we just hired this well-known company to come and do a 3-day training. And they're like, I learned more in an hour watching you do a demo. And like, it wasn't even a full like hands-on than I did in 3 days, because you get to use it from a practical standpoint. And you can, and if you have content, we'll use your own information, create customized workshops for you. So I created my own GPT. So you can create your own GPT. I made a higher ed ERP scope of work and RFP writer. And I just used our CP database of higher ed ERPs. We have ERPs in like all these different categories. But I use the higher ed one because that's what I was doing. And I'm going to say me a draft or outline of key factors I should include in my scope of work for an ERP. So, and now it's going to use like the whatever, however many I have, and it's going to develop a basic structure. And now I can go in and do each one of these in detail and it'll write everything for me. Right. But now instead of like hiring someone, to do all this, I can get a lot further along myself. And then maybe I hire an expert just to review it and critique it versus do it all for me. And so you're saving money, you're saving time, you're saving yourself a cumbersome procurement. You don't have to worry about them trying to compete for the ERP later or influencing one of the vendors. It changes the game. All right. And this took me less than 2 minutes to make this GPT. Now I already collected, to build it. So like I'll show you to build it. Super easy.
And so the trick is that you've reduced your internal procurement time, which you're already short-staffed.
Yeah.
And then you've reduced your need for sub-consultants that oftentimes take more staff time and aren't always doing things in the best interest. You're reducing those potential conflict of interest kind of things.
Yep.
The trick is though that we see over and over again is that, and Jake's talked before about his study on RFP sharing in the higher ed world is that garbage in, garbage out. If you were just using random RFPs that you don't know how the outcome of that service really went, because there's a correlation between the RFP and the service output. If you're not doing that, then you're not improving.
Or even just the procurement outcome, because it could have been protested, right? So that may not be the best RFP. So, so I can go in here, I can start getting in details. And so like this is, I just tell it what I want it to do. Whoops. And I might compete, there it goes. So like, I just told it what I want to do. I made all this up. You'll do better at this than I will. Loaded up some RFPs we have. And that was it. Gave it some rules, it churns for I can add pictures. I can change this anytime I want. I could add more RFPs to it later if I get better data. But now I've got a little specialized tool that's been hyper trained on a specific data set, the data set being the PDFs, right? We've been trained to think data because our old thinking of a computer is data means a spreadsheet, numbers. That's not data to an AI. It includes that, but it's much more expansive. It's every word, every video, every MP4 file, MP3 voice file, any of those things, images, Excel, PowerPoint, Word, that's all data to AI. It's not a computer program. So anyway, that's probably enough, Jeff, but hopefully it got you excited. Hopefully you want to play with it more. YouTube, play with it. I recommend a little bit of training. We've seen it has huge positive benefits, and it gets everyone going in your organization and gets people motivated. It helps spur the right conversations at the right levels to get serious about strategically considering generative AI, getting more serious about potential AI-enabled tools, and puts it higher on the priorities list because the potential value is tremendous.
This has been Ask the RFP Doctor, brought to you by the Center for Procurement Excellence.